Wonder why he's not engaged anymore. Our next performer, comedian, award-winning author needs no introduction, but it is my distinct pleasure to give him one. I don't know if anybody in North Alabama has not read any of his books. If you haven't, you need to. Let's give a real big welcome to our homegrown favorite son, Neal Wooten.
All right, Mr. Niblett, let's hear it for him. Is he the coolest science teacher ever, or what? I learned so much under that guy. I can't remember any of it, but I've learned something, I know. I learned how to boil water in a paper cup. Y'all remember that? Not really handy. It's taken me like 14 hours to make pintos, but... It's good to be back on Sand Mountain. Y'all got crazy things going on here all the time. My life in Milwaukee is boring. I have to live vicariously through you guys. Mitchell Dendy, no longer the mayor of Sylvania? Oh my God. I hate that. I really do. I know that man has been wanting to be mayor of this town from the time he was a kid to the time he was grown. But it's good to be back, although a lot of you make fun of how I talk, say I've lost some of my accent. But trust me, in Milwaukee, they still recognize a southern accent when they hear one, because it scares them. I can see parents pushing their kids going, don't look at him. They have crazy ideas about the South. This one guy said, you're from Alabama? You must be a Jesus freak. I said, yeah, you must be a regular one. The guy thought all we did in the South is sit around eating grits, eating watermelon, eating fried chicken, drinking sweet tea, going to church, going to mud, and dating our relatives and looking for UFOs. No, it's okay. I set him straight. I said, I do not drink sweet tea, and second cousins don't count. That is the hardest part about being a guy and growing up in the South. Is the most beautiful women you will ever know in your life are your cousins. I can remember going to family reunions and thinking, should I take a date or try to meet someone there? Right, Angie? Cousin Angie over there, she goes, that's true, that's right. But I tell you, Milwaukee's a pretty cool place though. It's got a lot of history. I actually looked up the name, the word Milwaukee, to find out what it meant. Turns out it's an old Native American word that means worst drivers in the world. Those people are crazy. They believe in defensive driving like you guys believe in global warming. It's a myth. Crazy. You know who I hate getting behind? I hate getting behind that person that leaves their blinker on forever. It never turns? No. You know what I think automakers should do? And I think it'd be very simple. Install a device inside the car that if the blinker stays on for like 30 seconds, the car automatically turns. That's how you stop that. But I'll tell you, there is one area where Wisconsin and Alabama have something very much in common. And that is come deer hunting season. People lose their freaking mind. I used to go deer hunt with these three good old boys from right here on the mountain. Y'all probably know them. All three of them named Junior. They were brothers. They would come pick me up. I would come to the door with a fishing pole with a white flag tied on the end of it and be waving it. It's Neal. I'm coming out. I am not a deer. And I always knew there was one of them in the truck going, that's just what he wants us to think. People are crazy. I used to have this newspaper clipping from the Montgomery Advertiser. I kid you not, this was a real newspaper story. The headline read, "Man shoots cow, claims he had mistaken it for a deer." Now I'm wondering, when did it dawn on him? Because the man had it skinned and hung up bragging about it. Yep, dressed out 750 pounds. It's a 2-point. I tell you how I got him. I was walking through the woods. I came right up on him. He didn't run or nothing. He just stood there and went. I thought, I'm in luck. He's in heat. I pulled up and I fired. Took me 27 shots to kill him. No, I got lucky. I might not have got him, but he kept bumping those other deer trying to get out the gate. I had to track him a few times. That bell came in real handy. Oh, I'd say no better place in the world to grow up than Sand Mountain. And I had typical Sand Mountain parents, which means I had a mom who would threaten you with guilt, and a dad who would threaten you with impossible punishment. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't eat vegetables. I hated them. I just stare at the plate. So of course my mom would say, there are starving kids in Africa who would be happy to have that. I said, Mom, you get me a big envelope, I'll ship it to them. And that's usually when my dad would chime in with something like, you eat that food or I'll slap the taste out of your mouth. Well, Dad, if you could really do that, I might be able to eat it. Worst trouble I ever got into? I was 17 years old, walked into my mom and dad's house with a beer. Yeah, you should have seen the look on their faces. My mom said, how dare you bring that in here? I said, but Mom, there's sober kids in Africa too. And my dad, not me clearing the next week. I used to love to visit my grandmother. My grandmother died a few years ago. She was 93. Still the toughest woman I've ever known. She loved wrestling. I don't mean just watching on TV. She loved to mix it up. I'd come home to visit. She'd be like, oh, you're a heavyweight now. Well, come on. She'd fight dirty, too. She'd kick you, pinch you, and if you weren't real careful, she'd catch you with that loose flap of skin right there under her arm. She had 2 of them. It was like nunchucks. Now, one day we were wrestling. I thought I had her. I got her in a headlock. And she took out her teeth and bit me on the butt. Oh, it is good to be on vacation, though. You know, last year my wife and I took a real vacation. Not to Soda Falls this time. But we actually went to Jamaica, which was really cool. Except for the second day there, I got stung on the ankle by a jellyfish. Very painful. Now, does anyone here know the immediate first aid for that? Yeah, thank you. I didn't know that. Jamaican man walked up and he saw what happened. He goes, oh, you got the pee on it, man. I'm sorry? Yeah, you got the pee on it, man. Apparently that's true. Apparently the acid in urine counteracts the toxins in the skin. I must have missed that episode of Jacques Cousteau. You know the one where the narrator says Jacques Cousteau and his men were diving off the coast of Australia when one of the crewmen, Pierre, got stung in the forehead by a jellyfish. Now let's go to the front of the boat where they're prepared to administer the antidote. And the camera pans around, and they got poor Pierre strapped down to the deck with a cargo net, and the whole crew standing around him in a circle. Pierre's freaking out. Guys, what are you doing? Let me out. Hey! What the? Hey! Stop! I think one of you is diabetic. But the good thing about going to Jamaica, we took a cruise. I hate to lie. As a matter of fact, we drive all the way down from Milwaukee, 700 miles. And when I was young, I loved road trips. You know, I would try to find where all the tourist attractions were. And now, I just want to know where the bathrooms are. You know, and that's what GPS is good for. You can type in bathroom. And it'll say, stay on the current road for another 6.3 miles. Rest area on the right. And I found out our GPS has different settings, different languages, different locations. It's got a southern setting. I said, hey, that's for me. Put it on southern setting. Now when you key in bathroom, it says, ain't you got no empty bottle in the car? The good thing about GPS also, you don't have to buy maps. Because my wife could not read a map. She said, it's not my fault. Maps are designed for men only to read. I said, what do you mean? She said, because only a man would look at something an inch long and think it was a mile. Another good thing about GPS, no stopping to ask direction. You remember what that was like? You couldn't find a normal person to give directions. Like there was that one guy who thought you grew up there. The one that said, well, you go down here to where my mom used to live, take a left, and go down there to where my dog got ran over. And then you had the person who apparently had no concept of the American infrastructure. I don't think you can get there from here. But my favorite was the guy who got really helpful. Well, first you get back in your car. Oh, it's a good thing I ran into him. I'd be walking my butt off. Yeah. But I really do hate to fly. I know everybody says flying is safe, but what do they call the building where you catch a plane? Terminal. I hate even going through the terminal. Seems like I always set off the alarms. One time this really big woman, TSA agent, she pulled me aside and took that little wand and went all over. She couldn't find anything. So she frisked me. I mean, she frisked me. She put her hand in places I didn't know it was legal for a doctor to do. And then got all upset because I enjoyed it. And you should have seen her face when my wife walked in and I said, "Could you demonstrate that one more time for me?" I used to have to travel back and forth to Detroit a lot. And when you fly from Milwaukee to Detroit, you don't take the big planes because it's just right across Lake Michigan. You take what they call puddle jumpers, the smaller planes. Like the ones I took had 2 rows of 9 seats, which means it would seat 18 people. And apparently, weight distribution is very important on these type of planes. Because every time before we took off, the flight attendant would start moving people around. And every time when she finished, it was always me on one side and everybody else on the other. She had people sitting in people's laps over here. And they don't have food carts on these type of planes. So basically what happens is during the flight attendant stays in her seat and chunks Oreo cookies towards her back. I like broke my seatbelt trying to get me a cookie. And they don't have room for inflatable rafts, so the safety instructions are a little different. Before we would take off, the flight attendant would say, in case of an emergency, your seat cushion becomes a flotation device. I thought, that's a neat trick. You know, I looked at it, it looked like a regular seat cushion, but it wasn't, it was magic. It could become a flotation device. I said, hey, why don't the plane just become a boat?